In the cold, vast reaches of the galaxy, where the stars twinkled like distant memories, Ethan was just another soldier. He wasn't special, at least not in a way that others could see. A former Special Forces operative, he had spent most of his life in the shadows, far from the spotlight. His missions, always quick and quiet, had never been about fame or glory. They were simply about doing what needed to be done. But when the message came through, everything changed. The message was brief, simple, and urgent. Rescue Princess Lyra. She is essential for the survival of our world. You are the only one we can trust. Time is running out. Ethan had heard of Princess Lyra before. She wasn't just a royal. She was a symbol of hope for an entire planet. The Queen's only daughter, loved by her people, Lyra represented the last chance for peace in a galaxy torn apart by war. Her capture by the Xantor Empire was more than just a political move. It was a statement, a message of power from the enemy and a threat to everything the galaxy stood for. But for Ethan, it was just another mission. Another target to reach, another life to save. He had no personal stake in it, or so he thought. When Ethan arrived on the planet where Lyra was being held, it was far more dangerous than he had imagined. The land was harsh, filled with towering cliffs, jagged rocks, and deserts that stretched endlessly under a burning sun. The enemy had made this world a fortress, and its dark skies were always filled with the sound of distant gunfire. Ethan knew what he was up against, but he had never been one to back down. Moving swiftly through the alien terrain, he used the skills he had honed over years of combat: stealth, precision, and survival. The forest he passed through was thick, making it nearly impossible to see more than a few steps ahead. He knew his every move could be watched, but he also knew that every second mattered. Lyra's life depended on him, and he wasn't going to fail her. As he crept closer to the enemy's base, his heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the weight of the responsibility that had fallen on him. He wasn't just any soldier anymore. He was the one who would either save the princess or watch her life slip away. He had his orders, but something deeper pushed him forward. Maybe it was the thought of the people who depended on Lyra. Or perhaps it was something else. Something inside him that stirred when he thought of the young princess, her bright eyes and her fierce determination. The further Ethan went into the enemy camp, the more he realized just how tightly the Xantor Empire had her locked away. But that didn't scare him. What scared him was what he had learned from the scouts. The princess was not just a hostage, she was their last hope. Without her, the royal family would fall, and with it, the chance for peace. Ethan reached the heart of the Xantor base under the cover of darkness. His heart raced as he sneaked past armed guards, his breath steady and slow. Every corner he turned, he found more obstacles. This wasn't going to be easy, but that had never stopped him before. The walls of the stronghold were thick and cold, built to withstand any attack. But Ethan had been trained for this. He had infiltrated the most secure facilities in the galaxy. This was no different. The guards were unaware of his presence as he reached the cell where Lyra was being held. He could see her through the barred window, her delicate frame sitting on a stone bench, eyes closed, her face tired yet resolute. He couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. She wasn't just a princess. She was the future of her people. He took a deep breath and moved toward the entrance, setting his explosives carefully. The soft click of the timer was the only sound that echoed in the silent hall. In seconds, the heavy door would be no more than rubble. His plan was simple, but he couldn't afford to make mistakes. If this went wrong, everything would be lost. The countdown began. 10 seconds, 8, 7. The door exploded in a burst of fire and dust, sending debris flying in all directions. Ethan quickly dove into the room, rifle raised, scanning for any threats. But there were none. Only Princess Lyra, still sitting quietly on the bench, her eyes opening slowly as the dust settled. Ethan moved toward her cautiously, his voice low. "Princess Lyra, we don't have much time." Her eyes met his, a mixture of surprise and relief flashing across her face. You're here to rescue me." He nodded, offering his hand. "I'm not going to leave you. We need to move now." Lyra didn't hesitate. She stood up and grabbed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong for someone who had been held captive for so long. Together they ran through the hallways, moving faster now that the enemy was beginning to realize what had happened. But the countdown wasn't over. The Xantor forces were closing in. As they sprinted through the winding corridors, Ethan's mind raced. He had no backup, no reinforcements. It was just him and Lyra, against the might of an entire army. They reached the ship bay and Ethan saw their escape ship in the distance. He could almost taste the relief of victory, but as they approached the ship, an explosion ripped through the air, sending shockwaves through the ground. The Xantor Empire had found them. "Get on the ship," Ethan shouted, pushing Lyra toward the hatch. He turned, drawing his weapon as enemy soldiers poured into the bay, weapons aimed. But Ethan wasn't afraid. He wasn't going to let anyone take her back. Not after all this. As Lyra climbed into the ship, Ethan took one last look at the enemy. There was no time left to hesitate. He sprinted toward the hatch, narrowly avoiding the incoming fire. The ship's engines roared to life just as he jumped on board and the doors slammed shut behind him. The ship blasted off into the sky, heading toward the stars, toward freedom. But Ethan knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. As the planet below grew smaller, Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You saved me." Ethan looked back at her, a small smile on his face. "I wasn't going to let them take you." But deep inside, he felt something else, a feeling he couldn't quite explain. The mission was over, but his life had just begun to change. As the escape ship shot through the atmosphere, leaving the burning planet behind, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. He stood at the controls, his eyes scanning the stars ahead, his thoughts racing. They had made it out, but the Xantor Empire was relentless. They wouldn't stop until they reclaimed Princess Lyra. Lyra, sitting quietly behind him, watched him with a mixture of admiration and gratitude. Her eyes had softened since they first met. The tension, the fear, everything seemed to fade in her presence, replaced by something more personal. But Ethan couldn't focus on that now. He had a job to finish, and the danger was far from gone. After a few hours of flying through empty space, Lyra broke the silence. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "For everything. I didn't think anyone would come for me." Ethan turned, his face serious. "It's not over. You're not safe until we get you to your people. The Xantor will stop at nothing to get you back." "I know," Lyra replied, her gaze hardening. "They'll do whatever it takes to destroy my family. My mother, the Queen. She needs me. Without me, the kingdom could fall." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Her people were depending on her, and so much more than her life was at stake. They were nearing the jump point for the royal sanctuary, where they hoped to find safety. But Ethan couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. After several days of space travel, the ship finally entered the secure zone of the royal sanctuary. The planet Arisla was a beautiful sight from space, its green ocean shimmering like jewels beneath the light of the distant stars. Ethan had heard of it. This was the heart of the Queen's rule, the place where Lyra's family had lived for generations. As they landed, a feeling of awe washed over him. He had traveled across many worlds, fought many battles, but there was something special about this place. It felt like home, not for him, but for Lyra. He could see it in her eyes as they landed. She looked relieved, but there was something else there too. Uncertainty. A royal welcome awaited them, as a group of royal guards stood at attention. Among them, a tall woman with silver hair and a regal presence stepped forward. Queen Arya, Lyra's mother. Her eyes were sharp, but there was a warmth in them as she gazed at her daughter. "Lyra," the Queen said, her voice rich with love. "You're safe." Lyra stepped forward, her hand outstretched. "Mother, it's been too long." The Queen embraced her daughter, holding her tight as if she could never let her go. But when she pulled away, her gaze turned to Ethan. "And you," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "I owe you everything." Ethan felt an uncomfortable shift. He hadn't expected this level of attention from the Queen. He had simply done his duty, saved her daughter. But now he was standing in the presence of someone powerful. Someone who had changed the fate of her people. "You've done what no one else could," Queen Arya continued, her eyes never leaving his. "You've given me back my daughter, and for that I can never repay you enough." "I just did my job," Ethan replied, trying to keep things simple. He didn't want to make this about him, but the Queen didn't seem to be interested in that. "You did more than that," she said, stepping closer to him. "You risked your life for her, for us. That kind of loyalty, that kind of courage, it cannot go unnoticed." Ethan didn't know what to say. He had never been one for praise, especially from someone like Queen Arya. She was a ruler, someone who commanded armies, controlled empires. But there was something in the way she spoke to him, something that made him feel like he wasn't just a soldier anymore. The Queen turned to her guards and gave them a subtle nod. The royal attendants came forward, guiding Lyra and Ethan into the palace. The hallways were wide and lined with rich tapestries, all depicting the royal family's long history. Ethan couldn't help but feel like an outsider in this world of wealth and power. But as they entered a large chamber, his discomfort grew even more. "Ethan, I have a proposition for you," Queen Arya said, her voice filled with purpose. "You have proven yourself in a way no one else has. Your bravery, your strength, these are qualities we need. The war is far from over. The Xantar Empire won't rest until they have everything they want." "I understand," Ethan replied, his eyes narrowing, "but I don't have a place in your royal court." "I'm a soldier, not a politician." Queen Arya smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "You are more than just a soldier. You are a man who can see beyond the battlefield, a man who knows what it means to fight for something greater than yourself." She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. "I'm offering you more than just gratitude. I'm offering you a position, a place in this kingdom by my side as my personal protector. You will not only fight for us, but you will stand with us in the most critical moments." Ethan blinked, his mind spinning. This was more than just a military role. This was an invitation to something much larger. A partnership, a relationship with the Queen herself. But was he ready for that? "I don't know if I'm the right man for the job," he said, his voice full of uncertainty. "I don't belong in a palace." The Queen's eyes softened. "You already do, Ethan. You are here because you chose to be. You didn't just save my daughter. You saved our future. And I want you to be part of it. There is no turning back now." Ethan stood in silence for a moment, weighing the decision in his mind. The stakes were higher than ever, and this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the future, his future, Lyra's future, and the future of an entire world. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. "This isn't a life I know." The Queen nodded, her face determined. "I am sure. You've already made this decision by saving Lyra. Now I ask you to stand with us as more than just a soldier. Stand with me." Ethan stared at her, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had never been a man of politics or power, but this felt different. The Queen wasn't just asking for help. She was offering him a chance to be something greater, something that could change not only his life but the lives of many others. For a long time, Ethan had been running from the idea of attachment, of loyalty, of meaning beyond the fight. But now, in the presence of the Queen, something shifted inside him. Maybe this was where he belonged. "I'll stand with you," he said at last, his voice steady. "I'll protect your family, your people, and I'll be by your side." The Queen smiled, her gaze locking with his. "Then welcome to your new life, Ethan. Together we will fight to protect all we hold dear."